I'm angry for myself, but I'm absolutely livid for these people that have suffered. And of course, many people, Jimmy, aren't here anymore.
Yes, that's right.
You know, they've paid the ultimate price.
What is exactly the worst part about the COVID-19 vaccine? I know there's lipid nanoparticles.
Yeah,
and
sure.
And it doesn't stay in your arm like they said. So just what the effects of all that is, and this, talking about cancer and virility and so could you go ahead and take it where you want?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So many interesting points there. I'll come on to that, Jimmy. But yeah, I think Bobby Kennedy said this is the biggest wealth transfer in the 20th century or something in his book. The real Anthony Fauci. There's a huge transfer of wealth from poorer people to richer people. And the origins thing, well, that paper, that paper, the last time I checked, hadn't been withdrawn.
No.
It's actually still there.
Yeah.
And I've talked to biochemists and virologists, and they said, that they knew a while back from the biochemistry of the virus and this furin cleavage site thing, the bits of it that just shouldn't be there, that aren't there in other natural human coronaviruses, that they were convinced of that pretty early on. And the idea that, see, if you have a natural pandemic, you have a reservoir of the virus in nature. So suppose it's in, I don't know, whatever it's in, whatever animal it's in, it'll pop up here and it'll pop up there and it'll pop up somewhere else. COVID didn't do that. It just started one place in one time, at most two. And, it's just the evidence for it being a lab-based leak is overwhelming. And I think two of the main intelligence agencies in the States now say that's the probable origin of it. But it's disconcerting that so many papers have been withdrawn on things like ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, the vaccine not preventing transmission. These papers have been withdrawn, and yet this paper, which is so patently ridiculous, is still there. But anyway, going on to the vaccine. So you inject this vaccine. First of all, as we've said before, some of it's going into a blood vessel. And these lipid nanoparticles, I don't know if can you see me?
Yeah.
But if that's a red blood cell there, which is about 7 microns in diameter, the lipid nanoparticles on the same scale are about that big. They're absolutely minuscule, something like 80 microns in diameter. So some will go directly into vessels if there's an inadvertent intravascular administration. And because it's given quickly at high pressure, there's going to be damage to blood vessels. So some is going to be getting into these damaged blood vessels and go all over the body. So in other words, it doesn't stay local. You get systemic distribution. It goes all over the body. When we say systemic, we mean all of the body system. So the nervous system, the cardiovascular system, the respiratory system, your toes, your fingers, your ears. Once it's in the blood, it goes absolutely everywhere. So it's this systemic distribution, and they're so small they get everywhere anyway, these little things. And actually, when we look back, we did know that for a while before, and it was basically ignored. But the problem is these lipid nanoparticles go everywhere. Now, before you had an injection, your body had never seen a lipid nanoparticle before. The body's not designed to cope with these. These are not a natural product. They're a synthesized product. And they contain, if we take the RNA vaccines, they contain this RNA, this ribonucleic acid, this genetic code to make the spike protein. Now, what's supposed to happen is the lipid nanoparticles are supposed to be taken in by the cells in your deltoid muscle in your arm, and a few will go to the lymph nodes in your armpits. That's what's supposed to happen. And there, the RNA is supposed to take over the protein-making machinery in your own cell, the ribosomes, make a little bit of this spike protein, cause a little bit of an immune response, and then it magically just disappears. So where do you start with that? Well, we know it doesn't magically disappear. We know it can hang around for 700 days in some studies, because what they did was they took one of the bases in the RNA and they put in a false base called pseudouridine. And David Speaker, the famous virologist in Canada who found out about the DNA contamination, he told me it makes it basically rubbery and plasticky, so the body can't get rid of it. It sticks around for ages, and it can go on and on and on, making more and more spike protein. So that means we can't control the dose. So do you remember I said before, you give the right dose of the right drug to the right patient via the right route at the right time? Well, with an RNA preparation, we don't know the dose.
Because because in a normal vaccine, you know what the dose is, but in an mRNA vaccine, your body's going to start making the dose inside of your body, and they don't know how to stop that process, right? So they don't really know how big the dose is going to end up actually being. So your body starts making spike proteins, for instance, and they don't know how many or how long or where it's going to go, right?
It's quite possible that it could vary by hundreds of times. So, you might make 1 unit, I might make 100 units. It's just completely unpredictable. And where it's going to go. So what actually happens is these lipid nanoparticles are taken in by the cell. The cell called slurps them up. It basically eats them. Process called endocytosis. Then the DNA starts making this spike protein. And the spike protein is recognized by the cell as being a foreign viral protein. Now, this is really clever. This is really clever, Jimmy. What the body does when it has a viral infection, the immune system can't get into the cells. So what happens is, inside the cells, this viral protein is extruded by the cell onto the surface of the cell. Now, if it's on the surface of the cell, it's now exposed to the body humors and the circulatory system and the white cells. So when a cell is infected, basically it sticks a white flag out the window and says, "Oi, I'm infected here. Come and do something about it." And what the immune system does, it says, that cell there is infected with a virus. That means the virus in that cell is proliferating and multiplying. What I will do is I will eradicate that cell. And if you eradicate the cell, you kill the cell. What are you going to do to all the viruses in the cell? You're going to kill all those as well. So that's what the body does naturally. And so when you get a sore throat, you get a viral infection, you think, "Oh, my throat really hurts." The reason your throat is hurting is because you have virally infected cells and your body's own immune system is killing those cells, leaving a wound in your throat. That's why your throat hurts, because your body's own immune system has made a wound in your throat. And that hurts. So you get this spike protein going onto the surface of the cell. And this spike protein is saying to the immune system, there's a virus in this cell. And what does the immune system do when there's a virus in the cell? Chucks in a couple of hand grenades and takes out the cell, which makes perfect sense because you're killing the viruses. Okay, you're killing a few cells as well, but you're killing the viruses, and the cells in your throat, for example, can recover over a few days. Most cells can recover over a period of time. But this lipid nanoparticle is systemically distributed. That means the RNA is systemically distributed, so it goes to all of the organs. For example, it goes to an organ called the heart. Now, suppose this virus is going through the arteries and the vasculature in the heart, in the coronary arteries. What will happen then is that some of these lipid nanoparticles will be taken up by the cells, which are lining the coronary arteries, lining the vessels inside the heart. And when that is taken up by the cell takes the RNA and makes spike protein. And some of that spike protein goes onto the surface of the cell. But remember, this is now a cell in your heart. So what does the immune system do to that cell when it sees the foreign protein?
It attacks.
Kills it.
It attacks your
kills
heart.
It.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now you're killing cells in your heart. Now, would you like me to come along and kill some cells in your heart, Jimmy?
No, I do not. I would not like that.
No. I don't think that's what we want. But that's exactly what your immune system does, because it's conned into thinking that these cells have a viral infection. So it does the right thing. But of course, these respiratory viruses should be in your throat with cells that recover quickly. Now, once you lose a heart muscle cell, it never recovers. That's it. It's gone. It never recovers. Muscle cells don't recover. So most cells in the body, I've made the odd mistake having a few drinks sometimes on a Friday night, and you might give your liver a bit of a hard time. But as long as you stop drinking after that, your liver cells will recover, because the liver has phenomenal powers of mitosis and cellular regeneration, as does your throat, as does your gastrointestinal tract. But there's two tissues that don't in the body, and that is muscles and nerve tissues. They basically don't recover. And of course, if someone's had a spinal cord injury, think of Christopher Reeves, there was no recovery from that, because the nervous cells don't divide. And it's the same with the heart. So if you lose heart muscle cells, they're not going to recover. But suppose these cells, the lipid nanoparticles get to the brain, suppose they get to the nervous system. If they get to the liver can probably recover, but the kidneys can be, basically they can go anywhere. And what's also quite nice if you're a young adult is to have functional ovaries and testes. At my age, it's somewhat irrelevant, but when you're young, you want your ovaries and testes to work. You don't want cells being destroyed in your ovaries and testes because your immune system is destroying them, thinking they're virally infected, when in actual fact, it's a spike protein that's on the surface of those cells. So that is the problem. It can damage cells anywhere. And as well as that, there's the whole immune dysregulation thing. And, basically, you don't want to be alarmist about this, but, it's a simple fact that most of us probably get cancer a few times a day. But the reason, God willing, we don't get that terrible disease is because our immune system suppresses it. It kills the cancer. It kills the cancer cells. But if you start fiddling around with your immune system too much, who's to say that immunosurveillance isn't adversely affected? And there's sadly some data from Italy and Japan starting to give some quite worrying signs on that. We don't know how that's going to pan out. It might take a bit of time. But that's why this mRNA technology is fundamentally flawed. And it's not just because there's a spike protein. So, for example, now they're working on an influenza, which is going to make an influenza protein. I don't know which one it is. But it's the same principle. Can you see if that goes everywhere, it's going to be expressing a foreign protein, whatever that foreign protein is, whether it's an influenza protein or it's a spike protein, doesn't matter. It's a foreign protein. And because there's a foreign viral protein on the surface of a heart cell, for example, then your immune system is going to destroy it. So this problem of systemic distribution and autoimmunity is going to be true with this RNA technology, lipid nanoparticle RNA technology as it currently stands, regardless of the particular antigen, that is the particular thing the body recognizes as foreign, it's going to be the same for all of them. So there should be a moratorium on this. So until this problem is thoroughly investigated and answered and safety can be guaranteed. And at the moment, in my view, it cannot be. So
what you're basically saying is we were told that when you get an mRNA vaccine, the COVID vaccine, that it would stay in that muscle in your arm and it wouldn't leave anywhere else. Of course, that's what we were told, and that was not true. Now, that's not true. It goes everywhere. Now, I have a hard time believing that they didn't know that, but I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and say they were just 100% wrong about it. Meaning Pfizer, the FDA, the CDC, and Moderna. Well, the regulatory authorities around the world. Yeah. Britain, New Zealand, it's just Australia, amazing. It's Canada. Amazing how they all got it wrong in the exact same way. It's almost like an orchestra that all works together, isn't it? All of the violins are in sync because there's a conductor at the front. Yes, and they follow the conductor. And of course, we're not saying there's a conductor in this case. And if you notice that, they call you a conspiracy theorist. So that's right. That's right. So if you notice things, things working in collusion, as they would say about Trump, they will call you a conspiracy theorist. So 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 it's dangerous because it doesn't stay in your arm. It goes all through your body. It creates an autoimmune response to your organs, like your heart, for instance. Well, right? A potential autoimmune response anywhere the lipid nanoparticles go. And that these things are still on the market, which is just mind-blowing that they're still on the market. It should be a crime because we now know all this stuff. Well, you've got to make a joke of it because otherwise sometimes I get angry. Yes, sometimes I do get pretty angry. And not so much for myself, but when you meet people like Brianne Dressing, who I've interviewed, I've vaccine injury, it's appalling. Appalling. She says she's rolling in cactus all the time. Yeah. And if it wasn't for the fact she was a mum, she wouldn't be here. She wouldn't have put up with it. And I met a guy, Alex from Glasgow. He came down to my place, and he's had his leg amputated after the blood clots. Right. I'm angry for myself, but I'm absolutely livid for these people that have suffered. And of course, many people, Jimmy, aren't here anymore. Yes, that's right. They've paid the ultimate price for other people's lack of diligence, shall we say. Come see me on tour. I'll be in Sacramento, San Francisco, Irvine, California, Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane, Australia, and then Burbank, California, the day after Thanksgiving. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.